All right, I think we are live and that we can start. I hope everything's okay with the sound, so just let me know on the chat if it isn't. First of all, thank you for joining me today to talk about the importance of UX in the early stages of product development, and a big thanks to Brainster for having me here as well. I'd like to explain why I chose to share knowledge on this topic, but first I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Catarina Ribeiro, and I am a Portuguese UX designer, illustrator, wine lover, and dedicated dog mom. I came to Vienna 5 years ago, and for the first 3, I worked for different digital agencies as a UI UX designer before I decided to go product-based. In the beginning of 2019, I joined Ready to Order, and this is the reason why I'm talking about this topic today. Having spent almost the last 2 years working on a product that was built with no UX designers in the process, I thought I might have some fun stories to share. The truth is, as designers, we don't always have the opportunity to work on a product when it's just starting to get created. Quite more often, our job will be to improve a product that already exists or to help to maintain one. But creating something from scratch with a user-centered mindset and improving something that's being used by a big customer base are two entirely different things. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I would also like to introduce you to my little assistant. This is my dog, Dama. She's been my most loyal companion and supporter through my UX journey. And the reason why I'm introducing her to you today, it's because she will actually be a part of the presentation and share some key takeaways at the end. She's a little UX enthusiast. So why are we here today? I would like to talk about what is UX and the different perceptions that people have of UX and what's our role in an organization. Then I'd like to go through some different UX fundamentals, the cost of developing a product without UX, and how to approach a redesign when there is no other way. At the end, we will have some time for takeaways and the Q&A if you guys have some questions for me. So, what is UX? I've heard a lot of different definitions and a lot of good quotes. For me, this is the best one. We humanize technology because that's the essence of it. UX is all about improving someone's experience or interaction with a certain product. With a certain product. And it doesn't matter if the product is digital or analog. Whenever you are using a product, you're having an experience with it. And this thing of improving the experience with a product, it sounds easier said than done, because UX is a very multifaceted role. We have to be present in so many different phases of product development. We have to be there doing the research and strategy phases, figuring out the target audience, their problems, their frustrations, their needs. Then we need to be part of the content strategy, understand technical constraints, and do the information architecture. So it's a very diverse role. And I think it's worth mentioning, it's not about the skills. Of course, as a UX designer, you need to have some hard skills, but more and more often I see companies posting these crazy job ads, searching for this UX unicorn, a person who should master 8 different design programs, should be able to handle Google Analytics, should be able to do UX copywriting and code. It's not about that, it's about being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, see it from a user perspective, and work closely with different teams. Work closely with product managers, engineers, marketing, content management, because at the end, the shared knowledge of all of these teams will lead to a better product and to a better user experience. So we are the guys standing in the middle of all of this, the user's needs, the business goals, and the technical constraints. And our job is to deliver well-reasoned solutions that compromise the best out of these 3 worlds. But how do we get there? How do we do this? I like to go through some UX fundamentals, 5 UX fundamentals, And they are research, empathy, strategy, validation, and iteration. If we look at the first one, research, observing user behavior and understanding what is that they are really trying to achieve, and then seeing their process to do that and discovering the main pain points during that process, that is really important. And that's the first thing you want to do whenever you are working on any product. You should really spend some time in here, because the discoveries you make during this phase, they will guide any decision that you make afterwards. One common mistake that I see people doing at this phase is that they have this first version of a product or an idea that they want to test, and they take it to a potential user and they show it to them and they ask, do you like it? Chances are everyone will say yes, either because they don't want to disappoint you, or they don't want to hurt your feelings, or maybe they just really don't know. They see the product and they think, okay, yeah, maybe I will use this. This is not the best way to get feedback. So there is, like last year, we quite often went to an event here in Vienna, which allows companies to test their products with a different range of users. Sometimes you are interviewing a user or a customer, and he's saying something. He's saying what his process is and how he uses the product and what he would like to have in the product. And then you do a test and you see him use the product in the real environment, and his behavior and his actions are saying something completely different. So this company who organizes this event, they always show one quote before the event starts, and it's by Henry Ford, and it says, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. And this is so true. So it's really important to ask the right questions in the beginning and to make sure you don't ask them in a leading way. If you just go to a user and you ask if this is what they want, or you ask what they want, they will tell you what they think that they want, but at the end it's still your job to find out if that's the best solution to solve their real problem. So a better question you can ask at this stage is, what are you trying to get done? Maybe we could look at a practical example. So you go to someone and you ask, what are you trying to get done? And the person says, well, I'm trying to call the airline. And then you ask why. And the person says, well, so that I can book a special ticket. And you're like, okay, why do you need a special ticket? And the person says, well, I want to take my dog with me on the plane. And then you ask, why? I mean, why do you want to take your dog with you on the plane? And the person says, well, I don't want to leave my dog with another person. And then you're like, but wouldn't that be easy? I mean, if you go on holidays, it's just easy to leave the dog than to take it on the plane. And you ask why one more time. And then the person finally says, well, yeah, but I want to save money on a pet sitter while I'm away, because it's way cheaper to just take her on the plane with me, and also because I really love my dog. That's the real reason. So that's your use case. So this example only serves to say that sometimes the first thing that a user says, that it's the thing they are trying to get done, or when you have a product and you think they are using it for a certain reason, that's not the real reason. There's always an underlying reason. And you should dig a little bit deeper and avoid this temptation of showing them a product and asking them if that's the solution for their needs, because once they see the product, once they see your solution, they will think about nothing else. They will just focus on that, and you might lose some valuable insights. So the second fundamental is empathy. You should try to empathize with their frustrations and their needs, and most importantly, focusing on solving the real problem. What works for you might not work for them. And one thing that happens pretty often, and it also happens to me, is that you do so many discoveries during the research phase that it's very easy to get overwhelmed and wanting to try to fix every little thing at the same time. But you never have the resources to do all of that. So you need to focus on what's crucial. And what's crucial, it's the thing that's going to bring more value to the users and take the less effort from the organization, from you and from your team. So you need to measure the value versus the effort, which leads me to the third fundamental, strategy. Align the user's needs with the business goals and explore different design solutions. There's usually more than one way to solve the same problem. And it's important not to get attached to the very first thing that you design. That's why sketching and wireframing are so important during this phase. You want to spend some time exploring different paths and different solutions before you actually invest time in designing the user interface, before you start choosing colors, typography, icons, photography. Before you do any of that, you want to explore different possibilities with the team and brainstorm on those solutions with the project stakeholders. This is what one morning of wireframing often looks like for me. So this year, me and my designer colleague, we started this project of redesigning the company's website. And after a few first wireframes, we put them in Miro and we asked the team to give feedback. And they all came to Miro and they put some sticky notes all over the screens with questions, with feedback. And it helped us to realize that there were things that we overlooked, there were scenarios that we didn't think of. And this helps you to narrow down the scope of possibilities that you have in the beginning before investing too much time making something beautiful. The next fundamental is validation. I think we all know this feeling of giving a product to someone and you expect him to do something with it, and then it goes and it does something entirely different, goes in a different direction. So test your solutions and don't make assumptions. When I speak about validation, I mean it as a step that should happen before the product goes into development. Either it's a click dummy or a fancy prototype, it's always easier for us and faster for us to do something clickable, to test, and to rule out a few possible UX mistakes than to wait for something to actually get developed. You save a lot of time and you save a lot of resources. So yeah, test your solutions. You're still going to find out a lot of things after the product is developed and starts to be used by a lot of people, but you can really do some good if you intensively test it before. The last fundamental is iteration. So incorporate user feedback and then improve your designs accordingly and then test again. If you got some valuable insights during user testing, and you usually do, you might want to change your designs. So don't just archive that feedback anywhere, document it, share the feedback with the team, and then adapt your solution. And it's really important that you share the feedback that you got with other people, because if you want to change the original solutions, then you need the team to understand why you are doing that. And the more they understand it, then the more likely they are to support you in making those changes. So, what does actually happen when a product is developed and shipped without any of this in the process? Well, this happens. Regardless of market need, if you are designing a product with a poor usability, you will run into problems eventually. There is a story which I think it's true for many companies and certainly has been true for at least one that I worked for. And this story starts somewhat like this. There is an idea. So someone has an idea because they met a group of people that had a problem or a need and they want to create a product to solve that problem. And at the beginning, a few developers built a first version of the product for a small and loyal customer base, which is these people that had this problem. And they focus all of their attention in keeping this customer base happy, which means that they will build a lot of customized features. So one of the customers calls and says, "Oh, I was using the product today and I would really like to have this. Can you do it?" And they do it. And this starts to pile up. So in the next stage, if the product proves itself and there's a real market need for this product, you will notice there is a high increase in usage. So the customer base starts to grow, and the company grows as well. So in a few years, you can have the situation where you see yourself with a product that I like to call the Frankenstein product. This is a product that is being used by a large customer base, and it's very complex. It has a huge feature overload, and sometimes some of these features are only being used by 10 or 20 customers, so they don't bring real value to the company. And because of this excess of features, it's really hard to navigate through the product. The interface is complex, the UI is overwhelming and cluttered, so it doesn't have a great user experience or a great user interface. And all of this happens because during this story, there was no UX involvement on any stage. So I'd like to show you now what a product that we worked on looked like 2 years ago when we first joined the company, and some of the challenges that we faced when we first started to work on it. This was the first screen that you would see. So you would create an account and then you would log in into the product, and this would be your entry point. So it was an onboarding process, like a slideshow tour, where you would be able to read instructions on how to use the product. And this had 15 slides. So a user had to click next step 15 times before being able to actually do the things that he wants to do, which is to use the product. But by the time they are inside, they already forgot everything that they read during the slideshow. Great products onboard users progressively and slowly. You learn by doing. So they highlight certain sections of the product, or they give you some tip tools, some notes, and you learn as you are using the product. In this case, there was no such thing. It also had a very outdated UI, so it looked a little bit like it was designed in the 90s. There is this constant war between UI and UX and which one is more important. Don't fall for this trap. UI is a subsection of UX. They are both important, and one without the other does not lead to a product with a great experience. And especially nowadays, I mean, modern products, they have such a high bar, such a high standard for user interface. If you see something that looks like this, then you're not going to find this product very trustworthy. So the UI plays a huge role in here. We also had situations where a lot of unfamiliar language was being used. In this case, you can see a super long drop-down with a lot of technical terms inside. Our customers struggled to find out what option they should choose here without calling customer support or without talking to their tax advisor. If you use a lot of jargon and a lot of technical terms, users are going to get frustrated. They're going to get super confused and not able to understand what it is that they should do. So speaking your audience's language is very important. Then this is the last example that I'm going to show about this product. It had a lot of inconsistent elements. So similar elements that do different actions. For example, the one you see highlighted in blue, that was a feature. You would click on it and you would go to a different part of the software, and there you can do some different actions. You could handle your invoices in this case. And the one highlighted in red, that's a button. So you would click on it and it would close the shift. Similar things, and you cannot predict that they will lead to such different actions. So what does actually happen when a product is not touched or improved for a long time, like in the case of this product? You can usually expect 3 things. The first one is frustrated users and complaints. So customer support starts having a full day. And this is the first sign that something is usually wrong and that you should start acting on it. So reach out to users, try to further understand the problem and document it so that you can start coming up with a plan. Then you also start noticing that perhaps new products start to appear. So products that are similar to the one you have, and they have maybe better features or a better user experience or a better user interface or better value for price, or maybe even all of them. So the market becomes way more competitive and it's hard for you to stand out. Usually, eventually, this leads to users giving up or stopping to use the product. Sometimes you can even keep your current customer base, but you start noticing that it gets increasingly harder to acquire new customers. If a product looks very complex and its value is not immediately communicated, then it's very hard to advertise it. Imagine you are designing a website for a SaaS company, so a company that has a product and needs people to buy that product. And you know beforehand that anyone, before signing up for the trial and testing the product, it's probably going to go through the website, scan the main headlines, look at the product features, and only then make the effort of doing the trial if those fit their needs. So how do you make a product in this situation look good? I mean, you can change the way it works, and you can change the way it looks, because otherwise, then when users go into the trial, they'll be disappointed. But you also still need to find ways to make it appealing enough to get new customers. It's a very hard balance, and you need to make some hard trade-offs. So this is usually when companies come to the inevitable outcome that we need to redesign. So how to approach a redesign? This is the big thing. Because you already have customers or users that are used to the workflows. And yes, they want change and they complain and they want the product to be better, but they are not actually willing to go through the effort of learning it again. So there are a few things you can count on. There's a great quote that says, it's from Halfspath: if you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design. And I can tell you why. There are a few things you can expect. The first one, users hate change. And I mean, they hate it. They are used to the existing workflows. They don't want to learn how to use the product again. Last year, we made the first change to the product that we're working on, and we deployed a slightly different home screen to our customer base. And we didn't do it at late hours. I think this happened middle of the morning. And our customers, they were already in their daily business routine, using the product and attending their own customers at the shops and at the restaurants. So the screen, the interface changed a little bit, and they were super confused and a little bit stressed at the moment. I remember we got some calls about that. So this only goes to say that it's very hard. If you have a product, obviously, that they are not so dependent on. In our case, it was very complicated because they depended on this product to do their daily business. But if you have a product that it's not used at every hour of every day, then maybe this is a little bit easier, but still you can expect users to not react very well and to be a little bit resistant to change. I was reading an article the other day, I think it was on Medium, and it was about the change aversion process. And I was reading it and I was laughing so hard because I remember that in my mind I was comparing it to the 5 stages of dying. So there is a new design release, and at first the customer is in denial, like he looks at the interface and is like, oh, this changed, it was just fine 5 seconds ago, what happened? Then it hits rock bottom, so they feel angry and frustrated towards the initial adjustment. This is usually the hard part for us designers. Then sometimes they call asking for the old interface back. I guess this could be bargaining. And then eventually their attitude starts to improve. And if you did something right, maybe they will embrace the new solution and even like it much more. But for us, this anger and frustration phase, this is the worst part, because you start receiving feedback, bad feedback sometimes, and you start thinking, you start self-doubting, you start thinking, okay, maybe we've done something wrong. Maybe our research was wrong, maybe our solutions were wrong, and maybe we should give them the old interface back. No, just monitor their reactions. When you are going through a redesign, it's important to give them time to adjust and see if their attitude improves. If you give them immediately the old interface back, then you will never know. So you need to stay strong and watch the progress of their reactions and watch their feedback closely before making any decision, any final decision. Probably a lot of you remember this, but Instagram changed a few years ago, and it was not very well received. I mean, people hated it. There is this great series on Netflix, it's called Abstract, the Art of Design, and they have an episode which is about product design. And on this episode, they feature how Instagram's design team handled the rebranding process. And there is this great moment where the lead designer is sitting on his desk in front of his laptop and is watching users' reaction to the new branding, to the new logo. And he's sitting with a bottle of tequila next to him, like a person on the verge of collapse. He was just super depressed. And nowadays, when you think of Instagram, people love it. People love its minimalistic look. People love how the app works, and they use it more than ever. So this only goes to saying that you should give some time for the adjustment. The other reason why redesigns are so hard is because they're obviously more expensive. So you lose a lot of time and resources. If the team needs to go back to the drawing board and developers need to rework the product after it's already built, this is obviously costly for the company. So that's why early research and testing is so important before actually any investment is made into changing a feature or developing new features. So, how to approach a redesign? The first thing that comes to my mind is that change is not an event, it's a process. And this process has a lot of different things. So the first one you need to take into account is that you need to reach a common understanding. What do I mean by that? I mean, you should talk to all of these different teams. Talk to sales, talk to support, talk to management, engineers, marketing, and content, and agree on a common ground. You are the person who is going to stick up for users' needs. You want to make the product better for them. And of course, all of these teams want this as well, but they also have other agendas. So you need to agree in the beginning on what the plan is and what the expected outcome should be. If you don't do this, then you will find that eventually the project starts to go in a different direction, or even worse, the project eventually is stopped. And if you put a lot of investment and talk to users and you want to make it better, this can be soul crushing. So talk to these different parts and make sure that you guys have a plan. Then track user activity. There are some tools out there. One of them, of course, is Google Analytics, where you can look at things like page traffic, user flows, device usage. There's also other great tools like Hotjar. And you should look at these things because, I mean, you can know a lot by the features that are being used and the ones that are not being used, or the pages that are being visited the most. I remember when we were doing the website redesign, we found out that most of our leads were coming from the blog. So our customers were searching for the problem, not for the solution. They were Googling the problem. And this would lead them to an article that we wrote about this topic. And then eventually, this is how they would get into our product. This is how they would get to know the company. So the blog became a very high priority just because we looked at the page traffic. You should also look at device usage. You want to know what to optimize for. And there are some other great tools like Hotjar where you can set up some heat maps, and then you can see the user behavior on a page. So you can see how far down they read, how far down they scroll. You can see which buttons and CTAs they click the most, which areas of the screen they spend more time on, and all of this will help you to make design decisions then in the future. It will also help you to understand where are your low-hanging fruits that you should drop and where you should invest more of your time in. Then do competitive analysis. You can learn so much from competitors, and not just direct competitors. Of course, you should look at those first, see how they position themselves, what features they have compared to the features that you have. But most importantly, it's helpful because they probably had to find solutions for the same problems that you are trying to solve. You can also look at some North Stars. So these are companies that perhaps are not operating in the same market, but they have a similar product to yours. And you can see how they advertise their product and what's their target audience, and you can get inspired by their solutions as well. You can even broaden your scope and look at products that are not the same, but have elements and behaviors that you might want to use to create something new. I want to show you a real example. So still speaking about website redesign, we looked a little bit at the content structure. So on the left side, you can see a terrible example from a piece of content on our website, which was explaining how the product works. And then on the right side, you can see an example from one of our indirect competitors. And on the left side, you can see a very complex looking product with a huge amount of text. It looks like someone went in there and wrote a thesis on the topic. And the body font was also very small. And on the right side, you can see the information is much easier to digest. So there's a clear headline, and then there are some bullet points with the advantages of using this product And then at the end, a very nice CTA that calls you to say, hey, see how it works. So this is an example of how you can make something much easier to digest and how you can learn from competitors just by looking on how they structure things. Another great example, and this is obviously not on our website, but a friend of mine sent it to me and I really loved it. It's about iPod. So this was a very innovative thing when it first came out. There was nothing like it on the market. Nothing that could have so many songs or be that small. Had they advertised it like the world's first portable digital media player, might not have been so trendy. I mean, look at the jargon here. Portable digital media player. It's a lot of words. It's not even easy to memorize. But on the right side, this is what they went for. 1,000 songs in your pocket. Why is this better? It's better because I immediately see the product value. I immediately understand what I can get from it. I can get 1,000 songs in my pocket, and this is what I want. Meanwhile, the other one is much more technical. And we try to do the same for our website as well. So we looked at the headlines, and we were saying things like the cash register for successful entrepreneurs. Okay, I mean, I don't want to be unsuccessful. Then we were saying things like the cash register system from Austria. A big part of our customer base was actually from Germany. Then we were saying easier and faster to sell. This is my personal favorite. It really doesn't say anything. And on the right side, these were some other SaaS companies that we just researched, and they were much more assertive and direct in communicating the product value. They were saying, collaborate in one shared workspace, or connect the tools you already use. It's really clear what you can get from it. And this is, for me, a good example of why UX is such a diverse role. Of course, as UX designers, we're not going to write the content ourselves, but we should still be able to work with content teams and think, okay, what should I say to the user and where should I say it? Where do we want the user to see this? And how do we bring out the most value of our product in the way that we say it? So yeah, it's really a very diverse role. Another thing we looked at was the advantages mentioned by our competitors. So we cluster them into bubbles. The bigger bubble is the advantages that were mentioned the most, and the smaller bubbles are the ones that were mentioned the least. Sometimes you want to look at competitors to get inspired by their solutions, and sometimes you want to look at competitors to be able to differentiate yourself from them. You want your product to stand out. And to do that, you can't say the same things that they are already saying. So you need to research what they are saying in order to say something different and reach other people. So this is another thing you can do. Then the next step should be identifying main usability problems in the design. You want to map out all of those critical areas. So you should get together with the team, look at your product, look at the interface, and then map out all the problem areas for the users, all the ones that you detected doing research, doing usability testing that they were struggling with. And then you want to discuss and brainstorm with the team to find improvement opportunities for those critical areas. And for each critical area, there's probably going to be more than one possible solution. But not all of them are going to be as easy to do. So you need to get together and see, okay, we need to measure the value versus the effort. We need to see which solution brings the most user value but takes the less effort by the organization, because those are the quick wins. So you want to be high up on the left side, and then you want to be low down on the right side. And those are the first things that you can start tackling that will make users happy and will bring also value for the business. Then you want to test. I cannot speak enough about the importance of testing, especially if you do it with real users. If you're working, if you have, that's probably the only good thing of doing a redesign, is that you already have your customer base. So you can go to your real customers and talk to them and test with them. But if you're working on a product from scratch, then perhaps you need to find an audience. And this is usually also possible to do. I mean, if you're working on a product, it came from an idea or a problem that someone had. So you should be able to find people that have those same needs, and you want to test with them. And then the more you find out, you can understand your users better and you can look for more specific people. The next point is make gradual changes. I think this is the most important one. You can never do a big bang redesign. If you just flip the interface completely from one day to the other, users are going to go crazy. When we planned the changes for our cash register system, we were planning some different steps. So the first one, we just wanted to eliminate this top bar that had a lot of critical areas and were frustrating to users, and give them a new site navigation with a help portal and the notification tools. And then we wanted to move the order view from left to right, because people read from left to right. And then on the next step is that we would start to change things a bit more, changing also the UI, changing how the order preview works. You need to do it progressively and slowly, and you cannot do this also every day. So the two opposites are bad. If you change everything from day to night, that's bad because it's overwhelming for them. But if you do one little change every day, this is also very annoying, because every day they need to make the effort of learning something new. So deploy something, wait a few weeks, and then do the next change. Another company that's doing this, it's Amazon. Probably a lot of you use it. I'm a heavy user of Amazon, and the other day I was shopping something for my dog, and I noticed that the app changed, that they are going through a bit of a redesign. And the only two things that they changed was the top bar, so that's the first arrow over there, where they expanded the search engine and then removed a few options out of there. And they introduced this new bottom bar, where you have the home screen, your profile, a card, and a few app preferences. Everything else was kept the same. So I was able to have a full shopping experience like I usually do, without noticing much differences. So it didn't bother me at all. Another point is customer communication. This is something we also learned the hard way. If you're going to make changes, and if you're going to give them a new interface with a few different features, you should communicate it to them beforehand. So a few weeks before, just send a message to them, an email, an in-app message, whatever, explaining what they are going to experience once you start the redesign. There is a company, which app I also use, it's called Revolut, and they're doing this very well. So a few months ago, I received an in-app message such as this one, informing me that they are updating their brand design. And they did it very well. So there was a clear headline saying we're updating our brand design, and then they highlighted, they were excited about it, you could see it from the message, and then they highlighted what it means. So what things I will notice over the next few days that will be different. So they were saying, to begin with, we will update our logo and our font. So they start very small and very gradually, and they inform you of the things that you might expect. And then at the end, they also ask for feedback. So they say, let us know what you think on the social Revolut app, and then they put a CTA for you to give feedback. It's great. It's a very friendly customer communication. You get excited about the redesign, and you are informed, so when it happens, you are not completely stressed and you don't go into this angry, frustrated mode. So the main takeaways for today, or let's say Dama's takeaways, are invest time in getting to know your users, create awareness to the importance of user testing in your company, in your organization, involve other teams from the beginning and always share your findings with them, be super transparent about everything that you're trying to do, and then accept failure. You're never going to get every single thing right, just iterate until you do. I'd like to mention this is a free UX lecture organized by Brainster in Vienna. They have a great bootcamp with a lot of UX programs, and you can find out more about their courses by going to this link on their website and reading about. I think their next program starts in October, so feel free to read more about it there. And I also have some resources to share with you. I think when you are changing careers or exploring a new topic, you get a lot of book recommendations. So I tried to go a bit lighter in here. One is the thing I already talked about. It's this Netflix series, Abstract, The Art of Design. They have a lot of great episodes, not just about product design, but also other different things that are worth watching. And then there are two platforms that have real case studies. This is something that really helped me when I was just starting in UX. I often heard about theory and UX mindsets, but what I really wanted to see was real cases, how other companies and other people found solutions for the problems that they were having and how their process looked like. So these two platforms, Growth Design and Build for Mars, are really good for that. I think now we will have some time for questions. But of course, if you always have some questions later, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always up for a chat. So I'm going to check the chat on YouTube and see if there are questions now. Okay, looks like there was a problem with the resolution, but now we are already at the end, so I didn't see this. Maybe I'll wait a few more moments to see if there are questions, and then... Oh no. Okay, there is a question. I'm just waiting for it. Okay, it's about the tools for tracking customer behavior. But I don't see the question there. Okay, is it the job of the UX designer to decide which ones they will use? Yes and no. So this is something that you don't need to do all by yourself. This is, or is it usually decided in the company? Okay, no, ideally you would decide it together. So there are a lot of great tools and you should get together with the team to see also, because some of them are way easier to implement than others. And you should discuss it with the team and come to an agreement about that. But when I mentioned this UX unicorn in the beginning, this is what I mean by it. You don't need to decide everything on your own or handle all of those analytic tools on your own. So basically, you can use a few common ones, like Google Analytics is great. Hotjar is also very good. And usually companies don't really have a problem with using these ones. You can also get a lot from the database. If you talk to developers, there is a lot of information you can get from there. So what's more important is that you know what are the things that you want to look for. And then you can go to all of these tools and try to gather the information that you need to make decisions. In my case, I was very lucky to work also with a product manager that is very much into analytics, and we worked together a lot to find information that we needed to drive design decisions. But there are a lot of tools you can use for that. Where do you usually keep updated on new tools? I read a lot. I read a lot of articles. I don't know if you mean analytic tools or if you mean design tools. I try to keep updated on everything, but mostly design tools. I read articles on Medium, on these platforms that I showed you. I watch a lot of TED Talks. I just try to keep updated with new information on all the platforms that I'm usually reading. What was your journey to UX? I'm currently thinking of going into UX, although I have a different degree. Okay, so I studied multidisciplinary design in Portugal. So this was a course that had a lot of different components. So I went to industrial design, product design, graphic design, and basically they allowed us a lot of flexibility. So the idea was that you would find out about what you really like to do, and then as you go through the course, you start focusing more on the things that you think you have a bigger aptitude for. So when I came to Vienna, I wasn't completely sure that I wanted to be a UX designer. I saw that My biggest interest was maybe in UX, user interface, graphic design, and I ended up being a UX designer because when I looked for a job, that was the first opportunity that I got. And then I liked my job so much that I just kept going, and I kept working on different projects. And looking back, I really don't regret it. And since you mentioned that you have a different degree, I have a person, it's my boyfriend, who was an architect before, and he made the decision of switching careers at the age of 30. So after working like 5 years as an architect, he was a bit frustrated and decided to become a UX designer. So if you already have, so if you're worried that you have a different degree and that maybe it's hard to learn UX, no, it's not. You can totally do it. You just need to have the right motivation to do it. Then, can you name the worst UX design from a popular brand you ever see? There are so many. Well, I mean, this product that I showed you didn't have the best one, but I don't think that it's the absolute worst. There is one app that drives me crazy, but I think there are a lot of people, it's not the worst, but a lot of people disagree with me. And I use it here in Vienna to move during the subway. It's called Quando, and I really don't like it. I think it's Quando. I'm not sure actually now what the name of the app is. But anyway, I'm really frustrated by it usually. I have one question also here. For making websites, should I learn programming? Okay, so coding is one of those skills. It shouldn't be absolute requirement, but obviously, if you want to learn it, it's always a good thing to have because you learn more about what's possible to do and what are the technical constraints behind it. So if you want to invest some time in learning some front-end development, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, it's something I would recommend, but it shouldn't be a requirement of your job that you know how to do this or that you work as a developer. You should mainly be a UX designer who understands enough to provide solutions and designs that are possible to implement. I don't see any more questions. And again, I'm really sorry about the resolution. I had no idea it was bad. Okay. So I think maybe we don't have any more questions. Thank you all for coming. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn and talk some more or have a chat or just talk about becoming a UX designer, feel free to reach out. I'm always up for a chat. Okay, one more question. Which tools you use or will recommend for prototyping? Okay, I use InVision a lot because I use SketchUp for designing, and there is a plugin you can have, it's called Craft, and you just send your designs there immediately, and then you can very quickly build prototypes if you want to take it to usability testing. But other times I also use the plugin Sketch Mirror. This is something if you want to do a bit of a more fancy prototype with a bit of effects and a bit more complicated stuff. But if you just want to do a simple prototype, InVision is really the best recommendation that I can have. I have some friends that also use Adobe XD. Apparently they have a lot of good tools for prototyping, so it's already incorporated in the program. I think it's also a very good solution that you can use, although I don't use Adobe XD myself. And okay, yeah, so Fabian is saying that he loves Quando and that it's the new one is the worst. I haven't seen the new one, I just stopped using it. But like I said, yeah, it's a fight. I've heard a lot of people saying that they love it. I'm among the ones that had a poor experience with it, but it's certainly not the worst one. I just can't think of another one right now. All right, so I think we don't have any more questions. Thank you for being here with me today. and hope to hear from you or see you on LinkedIn. Bye bye.